Hi, my name is Dennis Saccuzzo, and we're now into the heart of what we're trying to do here, which is really what's the best way to study for any test? What's the best way to study for a test? What's the best way to learn? What's the best way to memorize? That's what we really want to talk about right now. All right. Now, I think taking notes is essential. You can't hold it in your head. So what you want to do is take notes on what you're trying to learn. This will force you to make decisions. What you'll want to do is make a decision on everything that you're reading, and the question is, do I want to commit this or put this in my long-term memory? Is this something I'm going to need for this particular test? Anything you think you're going to need, write it down. And then, by the way, from thereafter, you're working solely from your notes. Now, I can tell you that I was getting mediocre grades for a while, and I always wanted to improve my grades. And what happened, and I've actually said this to thousands of students, and they use this technique and this idea. Let me tell you how it came about. I had a teacher who said, everybody cheats, so I'm going to let you have a half-page cheat sheet. And I did not cheat. And he said, everybody cheated. I said, well, at least I'll have a cheat sheet now and I'll be on an even playing field, which motivated me. So what I did was I took notes. And prior to that, I really didn't take too many notes. Like everybody else, I'm highlighting, I'm underlining, I'm, reading and doing the best I can. But I really didn't take extensive notes. But this time, thinking that, hey, I have a cheat sheet, so I took more extensive notes. By the time I was done, I had about maybe 8, 9 pages of notes. They only allowed a half. So what I did was I condensed it. And I kept condensing it until I got down to a half page. And then, just before the test, I memorized the half page. And we'll be talking about how to memorize. It's a simple matter to memorize a half page. But when I was in high school and I memorized that half page, what happened was I'd have all that information in my head. So I didn't really need the cheat sheet. And I could use this in any class, because what I would do is I would create my cheat sheet, but not cheat, because I'd simply memorize my cheat sheet. It's worked in high school, worked in college, where I got almost all A's. In college, I needed about a page or two for each course. So what I would do is I'd take notes and I'd clean them up, I'd condense them. I would get it down to a couple of pages. And then I would simply memorize those 2 pages an hour before the test. And by the way, it would put me head and shoulders above the other students. And I was pleasantly surprised. Well, I got enough A's to get a full scholarship to get a PhD in clinical psychology. And part of getting that PhD was a test. And here's the test. We can test you on anything in clinical psychology, from the very first article of Freud and even before to the most current article that comes hot off the press. Any book, anything in clinical psychology, we can test you on. That was the test I faced. I started reading and reading and reading. One of the things I found was a lot of redundancy. I read it here, read it there. A lot of things are covered by almost everybody, so you keep reading them again and again. You find that you could skip that. You don't have to rewrite it down. I started taking notes. I had about 100 pages of notes. And after teaching psychology for 20 years, I decided to apply these techniques to the study of law. And I took in my learning approach, and I finished law school. I got a law degree in less than 2 years. It was in a program that let you go during the summer and get a full semester. I got 3 semesters a year in 2 years, and actually literally finished from beginning to end in less than 2 years. Took the bar exam and passed the bar exam on my first try using these procedures. Again, the bar exam is a little bit more challenging because I had over 100 pages. Now, with these pages, if you have a half page or maybe 1 or 2 pages, you don't need to do this. But when you're starting to push it, you've got 10 pages or 15 pages or 100 pages, then what I discovered, and I learned this intuitively based on my understanding of learning and memory at the time as a psychologist. And essentially what I did was I took all of this material and arranged it in a hierarchy. So beginning with the broadest areas of organization. So what's the biggest concept? I use this when I write as well. So for example, if I'm going to write a 14-chapter book, I'll start reading. Oh, this goes to chapter 1. This goes to chapter 2. Oh, this is chapter 1. This is for chapter 5. Everything I read, I sort into a pile. And that's what I did with these 100 pages. And if I had to copy them and cut them, and so whatever I had to do to sort all of these 100 pages for both PhD, bar exam, I just started sorting them, and then I organized them. Each pile, okay, so now I have 14 piles. That's a hierarchy right there. Basically, we have the test in clinical psychology, or the bar exam. So the bar exam, my bar exam also had 14. So just 14 piles, 14 areas of law that I needed to know. Or I broke it down into 14 areas. All right, then I pick one of the piles up and I try to refine it even more. Can I condense this pile 1, chapter 1? How might I condense this? And again, putting it in piles until finally everything's organized, everything's categorized. The process is very worthwhile because as you're doing it, you become familiar with the material. You're going over it again and again, like, oh, where does this go? It goes here. Every time you make a choice or a decision, you are reinforcing your memory. Now, in between, I mean, if you have 100 pages, I think it took me about a week or 10 days for the psychology. The bar exam took a little bit longer, took a couple weeks to do it. And then as I was doing it, one of the things I knew that would help me would be to work with my knowledge. So I would, if I created a hierarchy or I created a chapter or page or what I was writing down studying, I would try to use it. I would think about it. If it was a clinical psychology test or psychology test, I would see if there's any practice tests out there, bar exam tests, take past exams and so on, take multiple choice questions. And also what I would try to do is say, well, what did I just learn? In other words, I'm making myself familiar with it. I'm working with it. And then the final was to commit it to absolute perfect rote memory. I teach this to bar candidates. I've taught this to PhD students, and I've taught this to literally thousands of college students. It really does work. And this technique works. And the college students that I've taught this to, many of them could even teach it to their friends. It's that simple. And you don't really need an expensive tutor. I mean, you could do this yourself. So let's go on to the best way to memorize in part 5.